teaching at NEC is, is part of a long chain of events that it's like part of what I must do. I mean, all the teachers that I've had, through my career have kind of, through their work, have given me so much information that I know that I also have to, in turn, share the information I received. And most notably was the teacher, Jackie Bayard, who was a teacher here in the 70s and 80s, and then he went to Manhattan School of Music, and that's where he was my teacher. After he passed away, I took his teaching position at Manhattan School of Music, and then when asked to come up to NEC, I was happy to come up to NEC because I knew how much Jackie Bayard meant to New England Conservatory, and also what he means to Massachusetts, as he was a native of Worcester. So this feels like kind of like the place where I'm supposed to work, the place where my teacher, who I credit for so much of my understanding of music, this is where he really kind of planted his seeds, into students. And so I want to make sure that I kind of also use his information that way to give back to people and to energize them and make them feel like they can be a part of the scene as well. The atmosphere at NEC is pretty open, and most conservatories that's not really how they function. I mean, I've taught at a lot of different places and have been a guest lecturer and clinician at many conservatories across the world. And the conversation that happens here at NEC is really one of broadening the spectrum of what is possible for a musician to do. And within our department, within the jazz department, is to really kind of have people to help you understand what is tradition, simply what is tradition, and then how you can manipulate and make a new tradition, That's kind of where I come in as a pianist who really loves to explore the history of jazz piano from, the late 1800s up until today, and really feel like I can have an open conversation with my students and show them these jewels that are kind of in the music. But the conversation here is very open, so you have lots of disciplines crossing over into one another. You have a film noir night where musicians across the school accompanying a classic film noir piece. You have a school-wide Scriabin festival that not only includes classical musicians but includes jazz musicians as well. Like we really kind of try to have themes that go across the school. And in that way, people are aware of repertoire in a way that I think is very helpful and meaningful as they exit the school and into, the music society in a way that they try to connect in the way that I think some of the great faculty that is here continues to connect to. Well, the students here, I don't mean to laugh, but the students here are very thoughtful. Like, I just remember myself as a student in the early 90s. I was 18, I moved from Houston, Texas to New York, and I didn't have any language to talk about what I was trying to address at the piano. I had no language for that. But the students I encounter here are extremely thoughtful with what they're trying to address in their music. They really contemplate these ideas and they wrestle with them on the instrument. And that's very unique. Maybe it's a generational thing, maybe, I don't know. But I think the ones I've encountered here really kind of help me understand what this next generation of musicians are thinking about, And then most importantly, the thing that I really grasp from working with the students here is kind of like, what are they up to? What music are they listening to? Which bands are really kind of touching a nerve with them? And what are the concepts or ideas in improvised music that are really kind of demanding of today? Because it's a different scene and they have a different understanding about society, than other generations. So it's, that's what I like about the kids here. And I'm getting old enough to say the kids. So I'll say that. And I have kids, Anyway. Yeah. Well, from my students, I think I demand, an open dialogue, an open mind. Not necessarily, I don't want a blank canvas. I want you to have opinion, I want you to have opinion about what you're playing. I want you to have opinion about what I ask you to try, so that I understand where you're coming from, And so I also ask my students to really understand where they are from culturally. What is your heritage? How do you think that makes an impact on the music you're playing? It definitely does. And if you begin to acknowledge it, then we can have a different kind of conversation about where music sits in you, you know? And so I asked them to think about that. But I also asked them to be really kind of studied in how they can manipulate their instrument. Because I think of a student, and I think of most great musicians and great artists, as people who are able to take information and then spit it out an entirely different way. And so they're able to kind of synthesize lots of ideas and say, okay, well then it comes out and it can sound like this. That's important for them to kind of start to figure out that process of pressing enter, you know, and how that comes out here. And so I usually give students like a lot of kind of ideas or concepts that have kind of polar opposites, and see if they can actually merge them together. And that takes having some facility, and it takes some, you know, kind of figuring out how you will equate this, you know, how will you come up with a solution to it, to the problem, to the question. And if my students are able to do that, I really send them, I'm happy to watch them leave and graduate, because then they're going to continue to use those kind of problem-solving skills in music, hopefully in their own lives. I think what NEC tries to prepare our students for as they exit the school is the information, you know? Like, what are the nuggets of information that once you graduate, you're able to, whether it's 2 years or 5 years down the line, you're able to come back and reflect on. So even one of the students today, I was like, you know, I can tell what you haven't done with your compositions. You haven't mapped your compositions and then mapped the compositions of Bartók and actually look at the two maps side by side. I can tell you haven't done that because we aren't clear about what the narrative could be yet, you know? You've taken the ideas, but you actually weren't focusing on the narrative. And so once you leave school, then you actually have time to do that, you know? And that's what I really want to send them out to. Now, they have to wrestle with how they're going to pay their bills, you know? And every student has to wrestle with that a different way. That's not only here, but that's at Harvard if they're coming out as a, you know, as a doctor or as a lawyer, you know, or as a business major. Everyone has to wrestle with, okay, how am I going to make it, you know? How will I pay this rent bill that's coming up every month? And so musicians what we try to do is give them enough information that they could transcend that line, but still be focused on their music and their art form. But I also try to have my students really think about the various ways that they can function within the music world and the art world, the arts world, big A, as an individual that understands how to write about the music, how to write music, how to play music, how to teach people to play music, how to promote your music, how to enable others to promote their music, you know? To really think about the vast ways that the music kind of intersects the daily life, and try to consider your music in a way that it can help people. And if it's not your music, that you could help someone else's. Then we aren't trapped with musicians thinking they should only be on the stage, but they can be a part of the larger scene, which is looking for hopefully the greater good of the music.